I'm Debs Weinberg. I'm chair of the board of the Associated, and I want to welcome you this evening. Quite a legacy, quite a legacy. I really do like to think about Elijah Cummings dancing with the angels, and really looking down upon us and saying, continue my work. I know it's very meaningful for us to be together today, to acknowledge the legacy of Congressman Cummings. He made a tremendous impact on our Jewish community and our entire city, and deserves us taking a moment to acknowledge him. To me, one of his most precious legacies is really the founding of this Elijah Cummings Youth Program. It was amazing because it was 20 years ago that it was founded. And since that time, over 200 students have come through those gates. They've been empowered by his passion and his vision for unity and really for their destiny. I also want to extend our well wishes to Maya Rockamore Cummings, who had planned to join us today, but you may have heard she had surgery and she is doing fine. We know that she is here with us in spirit. I'd like to call Chaya Friedman up to talk about the establishment of ECYP.
Good evening. I'm here today to talk about my friend, Congressman Elijah Cummings. The first time I heard Elijah speak was at my law school graduation. He gave the commencement address, and of course, just like every time he spoke, it was powerful. But little did I know at that time that the man in front of me with the booming voice and profound message would come to play such a large role in my life. Everyone here has heard of ECYP, the Elijah Cummings Youth Program in Israel. However, many of you may not know how it started. The idea for the program was my husband's, Howard Friedman, who unfortunately will not be able to be here tonight because of a prior commitment out of town. He was actually introduced to Elijah by another dear friend of ours, Kwesi Mfume. Now, as you know, Elijah's 7th Congressional District butts up to the 3rd Congressional District, which has a largely Jewish population. Although, in my humble opinion, the Jewish community and the African American community are natural allies and have been for decades, tensions do flare up from time to time, and relationships between members of the two communities are essential to deal with conflicts that arise. Howard and Art Abramson, who headed the BJC at that time, discussed that the BJC should approach Congressman Cummings to help start a new organization aimed at building bridges between the African American and Jewish communities. It would be based on a program that was first started in Texas by another African American congressman, Mickey Leland, who unfortunately later died in a plane crash, actually in Africa, helping Ethiopian Jewry. The program would send African American children going into their senior year of high school to Israel. As the congressman always said, our children are a living message to a world we would never see. The idea was that if we could educate the future leaders of the African American community about Israel and the struggles of the Jewish community, and have them build relationships with Jews in the community, that when they are running the city and conflict arises, it would be easier to communicate and have meaningful dialogue. The congressman jumped on board. And later, with the visionary support of Stuart Greenbaum and the Hofberger family, ECYP became more than just a trip to Israel. It is a 2-year leadership development program along with the trip. This program has changed lives. I've seen it firsthand. For many of the teenagers chosen, this trip is their first time out of Baltimore. Many of them live in rough neighborhoods where the expectations for their success are very low. And even worse, their own expectations for themselves are very low. Taking them out of their environment, giving them a passport, and showing them that there's a bigger world out there expands their visions, their hopes, and their dreams. It lets them see their possibilities. And that was key to Elijah. Many times, important and/or elected people lend their name to organizations. This was not a name-lending organization for Elijah. This was a soul-lending project for him. He put his soul into ECYP. He attended the meetings, the graduations, the reunions, and of course the interviews of the children who applied to get into the program. I always made sure that I sat next to him at the interviews. I love to talk to him about the students between interviews and hear his thoughts. I know there are many students in the room. I want you students to know that I can tell you firsthand, he heard you at your interviews. He felt you during your interviews, and he cried for you after your interviews. The pain Elijah experienced because he could not take every child that applied was palpable. Every person in the room felt it, and boy did he advocate hard. And although we used a democratic vote count system, when he advocated hard, we all just gave in to his choice because we respected his leadership, vision, and wisdom. I served as chair of ECYP for 3 years and have and continue to serve on the board for probably about 15 years. It is one of my favorite board positions, not only because of the wonderful impact it has, but because of the close personal relationship it gave me with Elijah. Elijah attended every monumental event in my life, both professionally and personally. He spoke at every one of my judicial investitures, and there have been 3. He danced in the men's section of my daughter's Orthodox wedding. He attended the bris of my grandson. The bris actually moved him the most, and every time I saw him for a couple of years after, he mentioned it. He loved and respected all the tradition. He was moved by hearing who my grandson was named after and the way we honor our ancestors that came before us. He had true admiration for the Jewish people's perseverance and a respect for our values and the fact that we supported one another. I spent hours over the years discussing the criminal justice system with Elijah and the societal problems I am seeing on a daily basis in our beloved city and how it affected me. At my last investiture to the circuit court, he spoke and gave me a missive to take the pain, turn it into a passion, and do your purpose. And he spoke about changing the trajectory of people's destinies. We all here today can do that. We can take the pain we feel of losing Elijah way too soon and turn it into a passion and a purpose of continuing to empower young students around the city who are not being given the tools to fulfill their God-given potential, and thereby changing the trajectory of their destinies. I plan on doing that, and I hope you will all join with me.